Hey, listener, ready for a deep dive that's maybe a little more revealing than our usual fare? We're going to be diving into the world of fetishes.
Hmm.
You've given us some sources about how different kinks are perceived, how popular they actually are, and maybe some unexpected differences in what men and women find appealing.
Yeah.
And get this, we're going to be unpacking a massive survey of over 30,000 people and their experiences with 120 different core fetishes.
I'm excited.
Yeah.
This is really cool data.
Right.
It doesn't just list out fetishes. It actually maps them out visually, showing us this interplay between how taboo something is and how many people are actually into it.
Okay.
And with a sample size this large and this clean, we can make some pretty robust comparisons between different kinks.
Yeah.
Are you ready to dive in?
Yeah, let's do it.
Welcome to Gender Decoded, when numbers align, seeing the stories that data defines, breaking the barriers, truth untold, insights in gender, the data force.
We're going deep on a topic that might make some folks blush a little fetishes. But don't worry, this isn't going to be like some sensationalized expose.
Right.
We're actually going to explore the psychology behind desire, what makes us tick.
Yeah.
And for this deep dive, we've got a fascinating roadmap, the Big Kink Survey. It basically maps out how much interest people have in different fetishes compared to how taboo those fetishes are.
It's a pretty incredible study, actually.
Yeah.
Huge sample size, over 30,000 people talking about their interests, and about 1,300 weighing in on those taboo perceptions.
Wow.
And the real value here is that it compares fetishes to each other.
Okay.
So it's not just about how common something is, it's about how its popularity measures up against how acceptable society thinks it is.
So, like, picture a map, right?
Yeah.
One side is how taboo a fetish is, the other is how interested people are in it.
Uh-huh.
You plot all that data, and boom, some really clear patterns emerge.
Exactly. And one of the first things you see is how interest tends to go down as the taboo level goes up.
Interesting.
Really shows how much societal norms, even the unspoken ones, can influence what people feel comfortable with, even in their own heads,
Makes sense. But like most things in life, I'm guessing it's not quite that simple.
Oh, of course not. There are always exceptions that make you think.
So walk me through some of those.
All right. So first we've got the mainstream desire zone, low taboo, high interest.
Give me some examples.
Think kissing, cuddling, maybe a little light bondage.
Okay, yeah, pretty standard stuff.
Right. These are often the building blocks of romantic and sexual expression for many people, so it's natural. They're widely accepted.
Then where do we go from there?
Things get more interesting as we move into moderate taboo territory. We're talking foot play, mild role-playing, even some armpit appreciation.
Okay, getting a bit spicier.
A little outside the norm for some, sure, but definitely becoming more accepted.
Why do you think that is?
Well, the line between taboo and mainstream is always moving.
Mm-hmm.
What was once fringe can become more normalized. Changing social attitudes, how the media portrays things, the growing influence of online communities, all those play a part.
All right, let's go to the other extreme, where the taboo levels are off the charts.
Right, so now we're talking about things like incest, necrophilia, bestiality.
Heavy stuff.
Understandably, interest levels plummet here.
Yeah, I can see why.
These are activities with serious social and often legal consequences. The stigma is strong. It shows how societal disapproval, that can really impact what people are willing to explore, even in their fantasy life.
But wait, didn't you say there were some head-scratching outliers?
I did, and this one's particularly interesting. Rape fantasies, sometimes called rape play. High taboo, but higher interest than you might expect.
Really? That's surprising.
It's complex.
Wow.
Many people in the survey emphasized that their interest was purely fantasy. They understood the ethical lines and that no actual harm should ever occur.
So it's more about the mental exploration.
It seems so. It shows the complex relationship between desire and fantasy, how we might explore things in our minds that we would never act upon in reality.
It definitely makes you think. Okay, let's switch gears a bit and talk gender.
Okay.
Because let's be real, men and women sometimes have different tastes when it comes to fetishes. Yeah.
While anyone can enjoy any fetish, regardless of gender, looking at broader trends can give us some interesting insights. Yeah.
Like what?
Well, for example, men tend to be more into visual and body part fetishes, feet, armpits, breasts.
We could do a whole other deep dive just on the evolutionary and psychological factors behind that.
Oh, absolutely. Tons of research on that.
And what about women? What are they into?
They tend to lean more towards romantic and submissive fantasies. Think being gently restrained, dominated, or exploring traditional feminine themes.
Okay, but I've also heard about women being into things like pegging and financial domination.
Exactly. It's a really interesting mix.
It definitely challenges stereotypes.
It really shows that female desire is just as diverse and complex as male desire. It can't be easily categorized.
It's like women are saying, hey, we can be submissive and dominant.
Exactly. And it's not just the specific fetishes that are different. There are also variations in how men and women approach dominance and submission. For example, women often prefer gentler forms of BDSM, sometimes called soft dominance, while men might lean towards more intense expressions, what some call hard dominance.
Makes you wonder if it's nature, nurture, or a bit of both.
That's a question researchers are still exploring. It's likely a mix of factors.
So we've seen that men and women often gravitate to different areas on that fetish map, but it also seems like the lines are always blurring.
They are.
So what's driving these patterns in the first place? What makes something taboo, and why do some taboos seem to fuel desire while others shut it down completely?
Well, there's a complex interplay of factors at work here. Cultural stigma plays a huge role. Societies create rules about what's sexually acceptable. Breaking those rules, that can come with serious consequences.
Right, that makes sense. The fear of judgment, rejection, or even legal trouble, it's a strong deterrent when it comes to exploring certain desires, especially the really taboo ones.
Definitely. But then you've got this interesting phenomenon of evolving norms.
How so?
What was taboo can become mainstream over time. Take foot play, for example. It went from a fringe interest to something that's more openly discussed and even shown in popular media.
Okay, and then there's the elephant in the room,
Yeah.
the internet.
Oh, yeah.
It's completely changed the game when it comes to exploring and understanding fetishes.
Oh, absolutely. The internet has been a game changer in so many ways. It's given people with niche interests spaces to connect, share information, feel less isolated, and this increased visibility, it can help to normalize certain fetishes and break down that stigma.
It's like the internet has given a voice to desires that were once whispered about in secret.
Precisely. And that can be incredibly empowering for folks who might have felt ashamed or alone in their interests.
Yeah, it's kind of wild to think about how the internet has brought people together around these shared interests, especially when you're talking about something as personal as fetishes. Makes you realize that even the most, niche desires, there's probably a whole bunch of people out there who share them.
It's definitely a powerful way to combat that feeling of isolation. But the internet's impact goes even further than just, connecting people. It also plays a big role in how we see and understand fetishes. Just the sheer amount of information that's out there online, it can challenge our preconceived notions and broaden our understanding of what's possible.
It's like the internet has thrown open the doors to the world of fetishes, and we're seeing the whole spectrum of human desire laid out before us, from the totally normal stuff to the really unconventional.
And that exposure, it can be a real driver of change.
How so?
As certain fetishes become more visible and people talk about them more openly, the stigma around them starts to fade. We've seen that happen with BDSM, for instance. It's gone from this hidden subculture to something that's, more and more portrayed in mainstream media and even embraced by wider audiences.
It's a good example of how those societal norms can change over time, right? How what was once taboo can become more accepted as we learn more about it.
Yeah.
But I'm guessing there are limits to this whole normalization thing, right?
Oh, absolutely. Some activities just cross those fundamental ethical lines and cause real harm.
You're talking about things like
Incest, pedophilia, bestiality. Those are acts that are, and rightly so, condemned. And no amount of destigmatization can change the fact that they are harmful and wrong.
Right, of course. That's an important distinction to make.
Yeah.
While we're here exploring this fascinating world of fetishes and appreciating the diversity of desire out there, it's crucial to remember that ethical considerations should always be our guide.
Absolutely. And consent. We can't talk about fetishes without emphasizing the importance of consent.
Totally.
Every single sexual act, no matter how unconventional, it has to be based on mutual agreement and respect. no exception.
I completely agree. Consent is the foundation of any healthy sexual exploration. It's about making sure everyone involved feels safe, empowered, and respected.
And it's not just about a one-time yes or no either.
It's more than that.
It's about that ongoing communication, checking in with your partner throughout the whole experience, and being willing to adjust or even stop if something doesn't feel right.
So we've covered a lot of ground here.
Yeah.
The data, the interplay of taboo and interest, gender differences, the role of the internet.
We have.
But let's bring it back to the listener for a second. Why should they care about all of this?
Well, I think understanding this landscape of desire can help us all cultivate more compassion and understanding, both for ourselves and for others. We all have our own unique desires and fantasies, and that's okay. The important thing is that we explore them in a way that's safe, ethical, and consensual.
It's about recognizing that human sexuality, it's this vast and varied spectrum.
Exactly.
And there's no one right way to experience pleasure.
And by challenging the taboos that surround certain desires, we can actually help create a more open and accepting society where people feel empowered to express themselves authentically.
Which ultimately leads to greater happiness and fulfillment for everyone. I mean, who wouldn't want that?
Exactly. Embracing that diversity of desire, it's not about erasing boundaries or saying that harmful acts are okay. It's about recognizing that human sexuality is complex and there's beauty to be found in all its expressions.
I like that.
As long as those expressions are rooted in respect, consent, and ethical considerations, of course.
Well said. And I think this leads perfectly into a final thought for our listeners today.
Yeah.
All this data is like a snapshot in time, a glimpse into how desire and taboo work together in our culture right now.
Right.
But societies change. They evolve. So how might these patterns change in the future?
That's such an interesting question to think about, like trying to look into a crystal ball and see the future of desire.
Right.
But if we look at the trends we've talked about, the increasing visibility of things that used to be taboo, the growing acceptance of different sexual expressions, the way the internet connects people and breaks down stigma, it seems pretty safe to say that the landscape of desire is going to keep changing in fascinating ways.
So what might the future hold? Could we see even more blurring of the lines between mainstream and taboo? Could fetishes that are considered fringe now become more widely accepted?
It's definitely possible. Look
Yeah.
at how attitudes towards BDSM have changed in just the last few decades. What was once hidden away is now talked about openly and even celebrated in some circles. It's not hard to imagine other fetishes following a similar path as understanding and acceptance grows.
And then there's technology. How will things like virtual reality, artificial intelligence, those kinds of emerging technologies shape our understanding of fetishes and create new ways to explore our desires?
That's a whole area ripe for exploration. Technology has always influenced human sexuality, from the printing press to the internet. And as new technologies emerge, they're going to influence how we understand and express our desires in ways we can't even fully grasp yet.
It's kind of a double-edged sword then, isn't it? On one hand, these technologies could really open up our horizons, offer new ways to experience pleasure and connect with others. But then on the flip side, they could also lead to some unintended consequences and even new taboos.
It really shows that the relationship between technology, society, and desire, it's complex and it's always changing. And it really underlines why we need to have these open, thoughtful discussions about it all. We got to be proactive in shaping the future of sexuality and technology, make sure it's ethical, responsible, and that it ultimately benefits everyone.
It's a tough conversation, but super important to have. And it all comes back to what we've been talking about this whole time. Understanding how complex desire is, challenging norms, and creating a more open and accepting world.
Couldn't have said it better myself. I think the main takeaway here is that exploring human sexuality, it's not about reaching some end goal. It's a journey with both amazing things and tough questions, and one that needs us to be curious, empathetic, and willing to learn and grow.
Absolutely. So to everyone listening, keep exploring, keep questioning, keep the conversation going. And please remember, consent and respect are absolutely essential in any sexual exploration.
Well said. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive into fetishes and societal norms. Until next time.